For example, okay, in certain variations, he's pushing on the queen side. For example, if bishop d2, c5, a3, take, and now c4, and knight c6. And if knight g3, you can even play this, and h5, h4 if you'd like, with pretty active piece play. If h3, then you can play knight e4 with equality here. And if castle, then you can play bishop g4. And it's all a little bit difficult for white to get anything, to get any sort of advantage. For example, even if he tries b3 here, you can just play the strong move bishop h5 and ignore it. Even if white eventually takes here, it could be more danger for him if you're immediately getting two passed pawns on the queen side. So it's not totally clear how white should try to handle this position, but I think that he should probably play just castle. And here in the game Kramnik-Leko, bishop f8 has been played, but the line I'm suggesting is just with bishop d6. And black keeps a watchful eye on all of the central squares. So f3 has been played here somewhat frequently, f3 and now c5. And sometimes white plays queen e1 to f2 or queen e1 to h4, but I don't really think any of it's very threatening. For example, if queen e1, knight c6, if he just plays queen f2, then you can play a6 and b5 and push the queenside pawns quickly, and I think black must be at least equal there. And after queen h4, you can play knight e7. And suddenly the queen probably is going to have to go back to f2 or something like that after a couple more moves. So the whole setup is a little bit ridiculous almost. But knight b5 makes the most sense to me. And now you could move the bishop back, but you can also just play c4, take, and b5. And again, it becomes a pretty tense game, a tough question between which attack is faster. Are the pawns going to move quickly on the queen side, or what exactly is going to happen? And you can counter, for example, if he plays knight b3, you can hypothetically counter this with knight c6 and keep some pressure on the d4 pawn, which will help to prevent e4. So I'll go back to what I think is the main line here with bishop d2, and now again I play c5, take, and the main line here I think is just roughly pretty simple moves: knight c6, knight b5, and bishop f8. And it might seem like white can get a firm grip on the d4 square in front of the isolated pawn so that the pawn can't actually get anywhere. But I think that after a couple more moves, let's say, for example, bishop c3, increasing the pressure, knight e4, queen b3. But it seems to me after, let's see, a6, knight c5, take, it seems to me that despite the grip on the d4 square, that the pawn is completely safe, and the rooks are on e8 and c8, and all of the pieces are pretty well placed. Let's say queen e2 and queen d7, and black can follow up from this position, for example, with something like f6 or queen f7, and his queen's also out of the way. So he could also follow that up with b5 if he likes, putting his knight on c4. But I think that the position is roughly equal here. And so I think that in most of these types of positions, it's mostly a question of the pawn structure. So in this pawn structure, it's getting an isolated pawn position where the grip on d4 is somewhat firm, but the d5 pawn is actually not very weak at all. So that sort of isolated pawn is really really not a problem. But, and for example, when we looked at the variations with knight e2 and take e5, and this sort of position where the center is basically diminishing immediately, that's another sort of position where black is able to get by without any extraordinary means. So most of the time it's just a matter of knowing what to do in the given pawn structure. So if I go back to one more thing here, let's see, with d5 and a3, and again it's a pretty thematic position. So of course there could be a lot more analysis devoted to this sort of position, but at the moment black is doing quite well in all of the variations. So that'll be the end of this E3 Sicilian.